It was the closest either of them had come to acknowledging how their personal relationship had affected Ethan. The boy had taken to Lily immediately, seeing her not just as his father's colleague or girlfriend, but as a trusted adult who had been there for him at a frightening time. "I'm glad," Lily said sincerely. "He's an amazing kid." Robert's expression softened. "There's something I've been meaning to ask you, but I've been waiting for the right moment. After today's success, it seems appropriate." Lily felt her pulse quicken. "Oh?" "The airline is launching the international expansion of your program. Next month. We need someone to oversee the training in our London and Tokyo hubs." "Yes, I've been working on the curriculum," Lily nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. This was about work, not what she'd momentarily hoped it might be. "I'd like you to handle it personally," Robert continued. "It's a 6-week assignment, split between the 2 locations. Normally I wouldn't ask you to be away so long, but this is crucial to get right." "Of course," Lily agreed, professional mode engaging automatically. "I'll start preparing right away." Robert's serious expression gave way to a slight smile. "There's more. Ethan has a school break that coincides with the Tokyo portion of the trip. We were thinking, if you wouldn't mind the company, that we might join you there. Make it a working vacation of sorts." "I'd love that," Lily said, genuine pleasure replacing her earlier disappointment. "Good." Robert glanced around to ensure they weren't being observed, then reached into his pocket. "There's one more thing. I was going to wait until tonight, but, well, I've never been particularly patient." He withdrew a small box and opened it discreetly, angling it so only Lily could see the elegant diamond ring nestled inside. "I'm not proposing here and now. That would come later, privately," he clarified quickly. "But I wanted to know if this is a conversation you'd be open to having, if the timing feels right to you." Lily stared at the ring, then at Robert's face, her professional composure completely abandoned. Yes," she managed finally. "That's definitely a conversation I'd be open to." Relief and joy mingled in Robert's expression. He snapped the box closed and returned it to his pocket just as Ethan bounded back, cookie in hand. "What are you guys talking about? You look weird," he observed with a child's directness. "Just work stuff," Robert replied smoothly. "Boring," Ethan declared. "Can we talk about something fun instead? Like how Lily's napkin swan program is the coolest thing ever and should be in every school too?" Lily laughed, grateful for the boy's timely interruption and natural ability to lighten any moment. "That's an interesting idea, actually. Maybe we should develop an educational component." As they chatted, Lily marveled at how completely her life had transformed in just 6 months. From a flight attendant constantly in trouble for caring too much, to a director implementing company-wide changes that valued that very quality. From a solitary existence punctuated by brief professional interactions to being part of something that increasingly felt like a family. All because she'd noticed a crying child when no one else did. The conference room had nearly emptied now, with attendees mingling in the atrium during the break. Through the glass walls, Lily could see her team members, former flight attendants, customer service representatives, and operations staff she'd personally selected for their exceptional empathy and problem-solving skills. They were the heart of the initiative's success, the ones who had taken her concepts and brought them to life in thousands of daily interactions with passengers. Just as she had done with Ethan, they were proving every day that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could have the most profound impacts. "Director Chen?" A young assistant approached hesitantly. "They're ready to begin the breakout sessions. Whenever you are." "Thank you, I'll be right there," Lily responded professionally, then turned back to Robert and Ethan. "Duty calls." "We understand," Robert assured her. "We'll see you tonight." "Pizza," Ethan reminded her with a grin. "Pizza," Lily confirmed, smiling back. As she gathered her materials and headed toward the smaller conference room where her team waited, Lily couldn't help reflecting on the extraordinary chain of events that had led to this moment. A missed alarm clock, a delayed subway, a frightened child on an airplane. Small, seemingly inconsequential occurrences that had aligned to change everything. She thought of all the passengers whose experiences were now being transformed by the initiative she'd created. each of them with their own stories, their own reasons for traveling, their own fears and hopes and needs. And now, because she'd taken the time to truly see one child's distress, thousands of others would be seen and heard and comforted as well. It was, Lily realized, the most meaningful achievement of her life. Not the promotion or the recognition, or even the personal happiness she'd found with Robert and Ethan, wonderful as those things were. It was knowing that her natural impulse to care, to connect, to comfort, was now being multiplied across an entire airline, touching countless lives in ways she would never fully know. As she entered the conference room to enthusiastic greetings, Patricia cleared her throat and adjusted her blazer, a nervous habit Maya had observed in many people when they felt cornered. "Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding," she said, her voice louder than necessary. "Economy class is actually quite comfortable on our international flights." The suggestion hung in the air between them. Maya noticed several nearby passengers, glancing over, some with uncomfortable expressions, others with plain curiosity. She felt her heart rate quicken, not from embarrassment but from a deep, familiar frustration. "There's no misunderstanding," Maya replied evenly. "My ticket clearly states first class." She tapped her phone screen where the confirmation displayed the cabin class. Thomas shuffled papers at his station, avoiding eye contact. "The system shows some irregularity with the booking method," he muttered, though Maya noted he hadn't been looking at his computer for the past minute. "What kind of irregularity?" Maya asked. Patricia stepped closer, lowering her voice to a confidential tone that somehow made the conversation feel even more demeaning. "These premium tickets are frequently targeted by certain discount schemes that aren't actually authorized by the airline. Perhaps you purchased through an unofficial channel." Maya had heard enough. This was beyond poor customer service. It was thinly veiled prejudice dressed up in corporate language. The assumption that she couldn't legitimately afford a first-class ticket was written all over their faces and woven through their words. "I booked directly through the Skyward Airlines website," Maya stated firmly. "I'd like to speak with the station manager, please." Patricia's smile tightened. "I'm sure that won't be necessary. We can resolve this right here." "The station manager," Maya repeated, her voice calm but leaving no room for argument. A flicker of annoyance crossed Patricia's face before she could mask it. "Very well. I'll call him, but it may take some time. We're quite busy this morning." Patricia stepped away to make the call. Maya noticed the young black flight attendant was still watching the interaction from nearby. She wore the distinctive navy and silver uniform of Skyward cabin crew, her hair in a neat twist beneath her cap. Unlike Thomas and Patricia, her expression held understanding and what looked like silent support. Maya gave her a small nod of acknowledgement, which the young woman returned before continuing down the terminal, glancing back once with a concerned expression. The surrounding noise of the busy airport seemed to fade as Maya focused on maintaining her composure. She had built Skyward Airlines specifically to combat situations like this. The company's training manuals had entire sections dedicated to recognizing and avoiding bias in customer interactions. Either these employees had ignored that training, or it wasn't being implemented properly. Both possibilities troubled her deeply. She watched Patricia speaking into a phone at a nearby desk, gesturing occasionally toward Maya. Thomas busied himself with another passenger who had approached his counter, a white man in a business suit who was checked in efficiently and courteously within minutes. Maya pulled out her phone and opened her notes app. Typing quickly, check-in agent questioned legitimacy of first-class booking. Supervisor suggested unofficial channel purchase. Both assumed inability to afford premium ticket, required manager intervention for basic service. Clear difference. In treatment compared to other passengers, she had just finished typing when Patricia returned, her professional smile firmly back in place. "The station manager is dealing with an issue at another gate, but he'll be here shortly. In the meantime, perhaps we could offer you a seat in our Economy Plus section. It has additional legroom and priority boarding." Maya recognized the tactic immediately. They were hoping she would accept the downgrade to avoid further conflict. How many other passengers had given into this pressure simply to end the humiliation? "No, thank you," Maya said. "I'll wait for the manager and keep my first-class seat as booked." Patricia's smile faltered slightly. I understand, but as I mentioned, there seems to be an issue with your booking. We're simply trying to ensure you have a confirmed seat on this flight. My seat is confirmed, Maya said, showing her confirmation email again. First class seat 3A. There's no issue with the booking. There's an issue with your assumption about who belongs in first class. The directness of her statement caused Patricia to step back slightly, her eyes widening. I assure you that's not— Please don't, Maya interrupted gently. Let's just wait for the manager. More passengers had begun to notice the extended interaction. A few were openly watching now, including an older black couple who exchanged knowing glances. Maya felt a weight of responsibility, not just as the airline's owner, but as someone experiencing a situation so many others had faced without the power to address it. She thought about how she would handle this when her identity was revealed. Should she fire these employees on the spot? Require additional training? Use this as a case study for the entire company? The questions tumbled through her mind as she maintained a composed exterior. Nearby, a different counteragent called a family forward, greeting their small children with exaggerated enthusiasm and handing them Skyward Airlines wing pins, the ones Maya had personally designed with the message, "The sky belongs to everyone," engraved on the back. The irony wasn't lost on her. After what felt like an eternity but was probably only 10 minutes, a tall man in a charcoal suit approached. His silver name badge identified him as James Wilson, station manager. His expression was professionally neutral, but Maya could read the subtle signs of someone prepared for a difficult customer interaction. Good morning, ma'am, he began. I understand there's some confusion about your booking today. Before Maya could respond, Patricia jumped in. Yes, sir. The passenger insists she has a first-class booking, but there are irregularities in the reservation. We've offered economy plus as an alternative. James nodded thoughtfully, turning to Maya. May I see your confirmation, please? Maya handed him her phone once more, watching his face carefully as he reviewed the details. Everything looks in order, he said after a moment, surprising both Thomas and Patricia. First class, seat 3A, direct to London Heathrow. But sir, Thomas began, the system flagged. I don't see any flags in the booking, James interrupted, turning the computer screen slightly to show Thomas. The reservation is confirmed and paid in full. Maya watched this exchange with interest. Perhaps not everyone at her airline had fallen short of her expectations. Thank you, she said to James. That's what I've been trying to explain for the past 20 minutes. James looked genuinely concerned at this. 20 minutes for a simple check-in, that's unacceptable. He turned to Patricia. What was the holdup? Patricia's composure cracked slightly. Well, it seemed unusual. The booking pattern didn't match our typical first-class passenger profile. Booking pattern? Maya asked, raising an eyebrow. What exactly does that mean? James looked uncomfortable now. We don't have any such profile parameters in our system, he said firmly, giving Patricia a warning glance. All confirmed bookings are treated equally. In theory, perhaps, Maya replied. But in practice, I've been standing here for 20 minutes being questioned about a perfectly valid ticket, while other passengers were processed in seconds. The implication hung in the air. James was the first to acknowledge it, even if indirectly. I apologize sincerely for this experience, he said. This isn't how we train our staff to interact with any passenger, regardless of cabin class or any other factors. His hesitation on the last words told Maya he understood exactly what had happened. Let me process your check-in personally, he continued, moving behind the counter. His fingers moved swiftly over the keyboard. You're all set for first class, seat 3A. Boarding will begin at gate C14 in approximately 1 hour. Would you like an escort to the first-class lounge? No, thank you, Maya said. I can find my way. James handed her a boarding pass, along with a Skyward Airlines premium luggage tag. Again, I apologize for the delay and any misunderstanding. We strive to make every passenger's experience positive. Maya accepted the boarding pass, noting that neither Thomas nor Patricia had offered a direct apology. They stood slightly behind James, Patricia's lips pressed into a thin line, Thomas suddenly fascinated by something on his computer screen. A positive experience would include being treated with the same respect as other passengers, Maya said, looking directly at James. Your airline's mission statement mentions dignity for all travelers, doesn't it? James looked surprised that she knew this specific detail. Yes, it does. It's a core value we take very seriously. I'm glad to hear it, Maya said. Because based on today's experience, you have some work to do. She gathered her carry-on and turned to leave, then paused, looking back at the 3 airline employees. For the record, I didn't book through any unauthorized discount scheme. I paid full price for my ticket, $8,450 to be exact. Perhaps you should consider why that seems so impossible to believe. The figure silenced them all. Even James looked taken aback, not just by the amount but by her directness in stating it. Maya walked away, feeling their eyes on her back. She headed toward the security checkpoint, her mind racing. This assessment was already revealing far more than she had anticipated, and she hadn't even boarded the plane yet. As she joined the security line, she noticed the young black flight attendant from earlier standing near the crew entrance. Their eyes met again, and the woman gave her a subtle nod of solidarity. Maya nodded back, making another mental note. Here was someone who understood, someone who might become an ally in the changes that would need to happen. The security line moved slowly. Maya used the time to continue documenting her experience, recording every detail while it was fresh in her mind. She would need this information later when she addressed the company's leadership team. She thought about her journey to this point, growing up in a household where money was always tight, winning the scholarship that changed her life, working twice as hard as her peers to be taken half as seriously in the corporate world. She remembered the humiliations she had endured as a passenger on other airlines, which had ultimately inspired her to create Skyward. We can do better, she had told her first investors. We can create an airline where everyone feels respected. Those investors had laughed her out of the room, but Maya had persisted, eventually finding backers who believed in her vision. 5 years of grueling work had transformed Skyward from a dream into one of the fastest-growing airlines in the industry, and yet here she was experiencing the same prejudice she had vowed to eliminate. The security agent waved her forward. Maya placed her carry-on the conveyor belt and stepped through the scanner without incident, a small mercy after the check-in debacle. As she gathered her belongings on the other side, she caught sight of her reflection in a nearby window. She looked the same as she had walking into the airport, but something had shifted inside her. The assessment mission had taken on greater significance. This wasn't just about evaluating service quality anymore. This was about whether her company truly embodied the values she had built it upon. Maya checked her watch. Still plenty of time before boarding. She decided to skip the first-class lounge. She would evaluate that another time. Instead, she headed directly to gate C14, wanting to observe the general boarding process and staff interactions with different passengers. As she walked through the terminal, she wondered how the flight itself would go. Would the cabin crew treat her with the same suspicion as the ground staff had? Or would they live up to the company's promised standards? More importantly, what would she do with her findings? How could she transform this uncomfortable experience into meaningful change for her airline and its passengers? One thing was certain. By the time flight SA-247 landed in London, Maya would have decisions to make. Big ones. The kind that would determine whether Skyward Airlines truly soared, or merely became another company that talked about values without living them. Maya found gate C14 relatively quiet. The London flight wouldn't begin boarding for another 40 minutes. She chose a seat with a good view of the gate desk, pulled out her notebook, and continued documenting her experience so far. The terminal buzzed with typical airport energy. Children chased each other around seats while parents tried to corral them. Business travelers tapped away on laptops. An elderly couple shared a sandwich from one of the overpriced airport cafes. Maya noticed how different groups were treated. As they approached the gate desk with questions, the staff were generally professional, but she couldn't help spotting the subtle differences. The extra warmth for some, the slight impatience for others. The patterns were faint but unmistakable to someone who had spent years noticing them. As she watched, the young black flight attendant she'd noticed earlier approached the gate. The woman spoke briefly with the gate agents, then scanned the seating area until her eyes landed on Maya. After a moment's hesitation, she walked over. "Excuse me," she said quietly, stopping in front of Maya. "I hope I'm not overstepping, but I saw what happened at check-in." Maya looked up, studying the woman's face. Her name tag read Zoe Williams. "You're not overstepping," Maya assured her. "Thank you for coming over." Zoe glanced around, then sat in the empty seat beside Maya. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry about how they treated you. It wasn't right." "No, it wasn't," Maya agreed. "Does that happen often?" Zoe's expression told Maya everything before she even spoke. More than anyone wants to admit. "I've seen it from both sides. Here as crew and when I'm flying as a passenger myself." She hesitated, then added, "I actually chose to work for Skyward because they promised to be different." The words stung Maya more than any rudeness from Thomas or Patricia. This was her airline, her vision, her promise to create something better. "How long have you been with the company?" Maya asked. "Almost 2 years," Zoe replied. "It was better at first, but lately—" She trailed off, clearly uncomfortable criticizing her employer to a stranger. "But lately," Maya prompted gently. Zoe sighed. "Lately it feels like we're becoming just like the other airlines. The original training about respect and dignity for all passengers isn't emphasized anymore. New hires barely hear about it." She looked down at her hands. "I've tried raising concerns through proper channels, but nothing changes." Maya felt a complex mix of emotions. Disappointment in how her company had drifted from its founding principles. Appreciation for this employee's courage and renewed determination to right the ship. "Thank you for telling me this," she said. "And for checking on me. It means a lot." Zoe smiled briefly. "I need to get back to pre-flight preparations, but—" She reached into her pocket and pulled out a business card. "If you want to file a formal complaint, this has our customer advocacy contact information. Though honestly, those complaints often don't go anywhere." Maya took the card, noting the irony that it had her own company's logo at the top. The stylized wing she had designed herself. "I'll make sure this one does," she said with quiet confidence. Zoe looked at her curiously but didn't ask questions. "Your flight attendants today are good people. We'll take care of you on board." With a parting nod, she stood and headed back toward the crew area. Maya watched her go, thinking about what she had learned. It wasn't just a few employees failing to uphold company values. The entire culture she had worked so hard to create was eroding. The thought made her chest tighten with determination. The gate area gradually filled as departure time approached. Maya observed the other first-class passengers arriving, mostly white men in business attire, a few white women and one Asian man. No other black passengers in the premium cabin, she noted. Not necessarily unusual for a single flight, but something to examine across the airline's data. As the gate agents prepared for boarding, Maya saw Patricia approach from the main terminal. The supervisor spoke briefly with the gate staff, gesturing discreetly toward the seating area. Several pairs of eyes turned toward Maya before quickly looking away when they realized she had noticed. Maya pretended to be absorbed in her phone, but her senses were on high alert. Were they flagging her as a problem passenger? The thought was both infuriating and sadly familiar. The boarding announcement came over the loudspeaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are now boarding Skyward Airlines flight SA-247 to London Heathrow. We invite our first-class and priority passengers to board at this time." Maya remained seated, watching as other premium passengers lined up. She wanted to observe the entire boarding process before joining it. The gate agent smiled and chatted warmly with the first-class passengers, confirming Maya's earlier observations about the disparity in treatment. When the line had dwindled, Maya finally stood and approached the gate. The agent, different from Thomas but with the same practiced customer service smile, took her boarding pass. "Ms. Johnson, she said, scanning the document. Her eyes widened slightly as something flagged on her screen. She glanced up at Maya, then back at the screen. "One moment, please." Maya felt her jaw tighten. "Is there a problem with my boarding pass?" No, the agent said quickly. "Just a system note, nothing to worry about." But her changed demeanor told a different story. Whatever Patricia had told the gate staff had clearly caused them to flag her boarding pass. The agent handed back her document with a now strained smile. "Enjoy your flight, Ms. Johnson." Maya walked down the jetway, mentally adding this interaction to her growing list of concerns. By the time she reached the aircraft door, she had decided this assessment would need to be far more comprehensive than originally planned. The lead flight attendant greeted her at the door, an older white woman with a kind face. "Welcome aboard, Ms. Johnson. First class is to your left." Maya nodded her thanks and turned into the premium cabin. It was exactly as she had designed it. Spacious seats in a 1-2-1 configuration, each with direct aisle access. The navy and silver color scheme created a sense of calm luxury. In another context, Maya would have felt proud seeing her vision realized so beautifully. She found seat 3A and settled in, placing her small bag in the designated storage compartment. The leather seat was as comfortable as she remembered from the product testing phase. At least that aspect of the experience was meeting expectations. A different flight attendant approached, a white man with graying hair at his temples. "Welcome aboard. May I offer you a pre-departure beverage?" "Sparkling water, please," Maya replied, watching his demeanor carefully. "Of course." His service was professional but not particularly warm. Maya couldn't tell if this was his general manner or if he too had been alerted to watch her. As other passengers boarded, Maya noticed Zoe working in the economy cabin. Their eyes met briefly, and Zoe gave her a subtle, encouraging smile before continuing her preparations. The flight attendant returned with Maya's water. "There you are, Ms. Johnson. We'll be departing shortly." Maya thanked him and settled back in her seat, pulling out her notebook again. She jotted down her observations about the boarding process and initial cabin service. The first-class cabin filled with the remaining passengers. Maya noticed a white man in casual clothes, jeans and a rumpled polo shirt, being warmly welcomed, without any questioning about his ticket. The contrast with her own experience was stark. As the boarding process completed, Maya heard a quiet conversation at the front of the cabin. She glanced up to see Patricia, the supervisor from check-in, speaking with the lead flight attendant while looking in her direction. Their voices were too low to make out the words, but their glances told the story. Maya felt a flash of anger. Was Patricia actually boarding the plane to continue monitoring her? This was beyond unprofessional. It was harassment. The lead flight attendant nodded to Patricia, who then left the aircraft. The attendant immediately came to Maya's seat. "Ms. Johnson, is everything to your satisfaction?" she asked, her tone carefully neutral. "The seat is fine," Maya replied. "Though I'm curious why the check-in supervisor felt the need to board the plane and speak to you about me." The flight attendant's professional mask slipped for just a moment, showing surprise that Maya had noticed. "She was just updating us on some passenger information." "What kind of information?" Maya pressed. The attendant hesitated. "It's standard procedure for our premium cabin service." "Is it standard procedure for all first-class passengers, or just certain ones?" Maya asked quietly. The question hung in the air between them. The flight attendant seemed to be weighing her response carefully. "I assure you we aim to provide excellent service to all our passengers," she finally said, avoiding the actual question. "Please let me know if you need anything during the flight." She moved away quickly, leaving Maya with confirmation that she was indeed being singled out for special attention, and not the good kind. The safety demonstration began, and Maya tried to refocus on her assessment. She would document everything thoroughly and address it all once they landed. For now, she would continue observing. The plane pushed back from the gate right on schedule. As they taxied toward the runway, Maya noticed Zoe making her way through, the economy cabin checking seatbelts and overhead bins. The young flight attendant moved with efficiency and genuine warmth, stopping to help a mother settle her fussy toddler. That's what Skyward service should look like for everyone, Maya thought. That's the standard I wanted. Takeoff was smooth, the powerful engines lifting them effortlessly into the morning sky. As they climbed, Maya watched Atlanta shrink beneath them, the city where she had first dreamed up Skyward Airlines 5 years ago, sitting in a small apartment with spreadsheets and business plans spread across her kitchen table. "You'll never get the funding," her former boss had told her when she resigned to pursue her dream. "The airline industry is too competitive, too established." He hadn't been entirely wrong about the challenges, but he had underestimated Maya's determination and vision. She had secured the initial investment, hired the right team, and built Skyward into a respected carrier with 16 aircraft and growing international routes. Now she faced a different challenge, ensuring that the company truly embodied the values she had founded it upon. Once they reached cruising altitude, the cabin service began. Maya observed the flight attendants closely, noting how they interacted with different passengers. The differences were subtle but present, slightly warmer smiles for some, more attentive service for others. Not egregious, but noticeable to someone looking for the patterns. When it came time for the flight attendant to take her meal order, Maya was prepared to continue her assessment. "What can I offer you for lunch today, Ms. Johnson?" he asked, tablet in hand. "What are my options?" Maya replied, though she knew them by heart. She had approved the menu herself. He recited the choices professionally. Maya selected the grilled salmon with seasonal vegetables. "And would you like wine with your meal?" "Just water, thank you." He nodded and moved to the next passenger. The interaction had been perfectly professional, if somewhat cool. Maya made a note in her book. As the meal service progressed, she noticed the lead flight attendant watching her from the galley. The woman's expression was carefully neutral, but her attention was obvious. Maya began to understand how the other passengers who had faced this kind of scrutiny must have felt. The constant awareness of being watched, evaluated, suspected. Her meal arrived, beautifully presented on Skyward's custom china. Another detail she had personally selected. The salmon was perfectly cooked, the vegetables crisp tender. At least the food quality maintained her standards. After the meal service, Maya reclined her seat slightly and pretended to nap, still observing the cabin through barely open eyes. The other first-class passengers were treated to attentive but unobtrusive service. One man had his wine glass refilled without asking. Another was quietly offered a second blanket when he seemed chilly. Maya wondered if she would receive the same attentiveness. To test this, she allowed her magazine to slip from her lap onto the floor, then continued her pretend nap. 10 minutes passed before the flight attendant noticed and approached. "Ma'am," he said, his voice noticeably louder than necessary to you. "Wake someone. You dropped your magazine." Maya opened her eyes, noting that he hadn't picked it up for her as she had seen him do for another passenger earlier. "Thank you," she said, reaching down for it herself. He nodded and moved away quickly. Another data point for her assessment. About halfway through the flight, Maya decided to visit the lavatory. As she walked through the cabin, she noticed the lead flight attendant watching her progress as if expecting her to cause trouble. The scrutiny was becoming almost comical in its transparency. When she returned to her seat, she found Zoe adjusting a pillow for the passenger across the aisle. The young flight attendant caught her eye and gave a small smile of acknowledgement. "Can I get you anything, Ms. Johnson?" Zoe asked, her tone naturally warm in contrast to the other crew members. "I'm fine, thank you," Maya replied. "Actually, how long have you been with Skyward?" "Almost 2 years," Zoe said. "I was part of the third group of flight attendants hired after the company expanded." Maya nodded. "And what made you choose this airline?" Zoe glanced around, then lowered her voice slightly. "Honestly, the company values." The founder talked about creating an airline where everyone would be treated with dignity. That meant something to me. The words landed like a stone in Maya's stomach. Her own vision quoted back to her, highlighting how far the company had strayed. "Does it live up to those values?" Maya asked quietly. Zoe's hesitation was answer enough. "It's Complicated. Some of us try. But the culture has changed over time. Before Maya could respond, the lead flight attendant appeared. Zoe, we need you in economy for the second service. Zoe nodded professionally. Right away. To Maya she added, please let us know if you need anything at all. As Zoe walked away, the lead attendant gave Maya a long look before returning to the galley. The message was clear. Zoe was being pulled away from unnecessary conversation with the difficult passenger. Maya returned to her notes, adding this interaction to her growing documentation. By the time they began their descent toward London, she had filled several pages with observations, both positive and concerning. The most troubling pattern was how her identity had followed her throughout the journey, from check-in to boarding, to in-flight service. The initial prejudice had created a ripple effect, with staff passing along their suspicions and concerns. It was exactly the kind of system failure she had created Skyward to eliminate. As the plane touched down at Heathrow, Maya had made her decision. This assessment had revealed far more than she had anticipated. The time for anonymous observation was over. When they reached the gate, she would reveal her identity and begin addressing these issues immediately. The aircraft taxied to the terminal, and passengers began gathering their belongings. Maya remained seated, continuing to observe. She watched as the crew prepared for deplaning, noting their interactions with various passengers. Finally, as the seatbelt sign turned off and people stood to retrieve their items from the overhead bins, Maya took out her phone and made a call. Hello, this is Maya Johnson, she said when the call connected. I've just landed in London. I need you to arrange an immediate meeting with the local station manager and senior crew. Yes, it's urgent. I'll explain when I see you. She ended the call and looked up to find the lead flight attendant staring at her, having overheard the name and the authoritative tone. The woman's expression shifted from suspicious to uncertain. Maya stood, gathering her belongings with calm purpose. The true assessment was complete. Now it was time for accountability. The passengers filed out of the aircraft in the usual hurried shuffle. Maya remained seated, allowing the first-class cabin to clear. She watched as the flight attendants bid farewell to each passenger with practiced smiles and well-rehearsed phrases. Thank you for flying with Skyward Airlines. Have a wonderful stay in London. We hope to see you again soon. Standard pleasantries, delivered with varying degrees of warmth depending on the passenger. Maya noted each interaction in her mental log, adding to the detailed assessment she'd been conducting throughout the journey. When the cabin had emptied except for her, the lead flight attendant approached with a now hesitant expression. Ms. Johnson, is everything all right? Do you need assistance deplaning? Maya stood, smoothing her simple blouse. Actually, I'd like all the flight crew to remain on board for a few minutes after the passengers have disembarked. Could you arrange that, please? The woman's expression shifted from confusion to concern. I'm not sure we can do that. We have turnaround procedures and... The procedures can wait, Maya interrupted gently. This won't take long. May I ask what this is regarding? The flight attendant's professional mask was slipping, revealing genuine worry. Maya met her gaze directly. It's regarding the treatment I received from check-in through this entire flight, and what that indicates about Skyward Airlines' current culture. Before the woman could respond, another voice joined the conversation. Is there a problem here? Maya turned to see a man in a crisp suit standing at the cabin entrance. His badge identified him as Robert Green, London Station Manager. Behind him stood a woman in similar professional attire, likely his assistant or deputy. Mr. Green, Maya acknowledged with a nod. Perfect timing. I was just requesting that the flight crew remain on board for a brief meeting. Robert looked confused. I'm sorry, who are you exactly? Maya reached into her carry-on and pulled out a small leather portfolio. From it, she extracted a business card and handed it to him. Maya Johnson, founder and CEO of Skyward Airlines. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Robert's face went through a rapid series of expressions: disbelief, shock, and finally a dawning horror as he realized the implications. The lead flight attendant took a physical step backward, her hand rising to her mouth. Ms. Johnson, Robert stammered. We had no idea you were on this flight. There was no notification in the system. That was intentional, Maya replied calmly. I was conducting an unannounced quality assessment. The lead flight attendant had gone pale. I should gather the crew, she said quickly, hurrying toward the back of the plane. Robert was still staring at Maya's business card as if expecting it to transform into something else. Of course, we're honored to have you with us, Ms. Johnson. If you had known, Maya interrupted, I would have received very different treatment. That's precisely why I traveled incognito. Understanding dawned in Robert's eyes. He lowered his voice. Was there an issue with your experience? Several, Maya replied, which is why I'd like to speak with the entire crew immediately. Robert nodded, his professional training taking over despite his obvious discomfort. Of course. Would you prefer to use our airport offices for this discussion? No, Maya said firmly. Here will be fine. I want this to happen while the experience is fresh for everyone involved. The cabin crew began to gather at the front of the aircraft, alerted by the lead attendant. Maya could see the confusion on their faces, the whispered questions, the growing realization as they pieced together what was happening. Zoe stood slightly apart from the others, her expression a mixture of surprise and something else, perhaps hope. When all 8 crew members had assembled, Maya stepped forward. She took a moment to look at each face, noting their expressions, their body language, their various reactions to her presence. Good afternoon, she began, her voice calm but carrying the natural authority that had helped her build a multi-million-dollar airline from nothing. For those who haven't guessed by now, I'm Maya Johnson, the founder and CEO of Skyward Airlines. Ripple of murmurs moved through the group. One flight attendant whispered, "Oh my God," under her breath. I was on this flight as a regular passenger, conducting a quality assessment of our service. I did not identify myself at check-in or during the flight, because I wanted to experience our airline exactly as our customers do. Maya paused, letting this sink in. Unfortunately, what I experienced fell far short of the standards I established when founding this company. The lead flight attendant stepped forward. Ms. Johnson, if there was any deficiency in our service, the deficiency, Maya cut in, began at check-in in Atlanta, where I was questioned about the legitimacy of my first-class ticket. It continued, when a supervisor was called to handle the situation of a black woman attempting to fly first class. It persisted when that supervisor suggested I might have obtained my ticket through unauthorized channels and offered to downgrade me to economy. The crew exchanged uncomfortable glances. Some looked genuinely shocked, others shamefaced as if they'd witnessed such treatment before. The issues continued during boarding, Maya went on, when I observed the gate agents treating first-class passengers differently based on their appearance, and they persisted during this flight, when I was watched suspiciously, received notably less attentive service than other passengers, and observed the lead flight attendant discouraging a junior crew member from speaking with me. She turned, her gaze directly to the lead attendant whose face had flushed red. Would you like to explain why Zoe was pulled away when she was simply providing good customer service? The woman opened and closed her mouth, finding no words. I thought not, Maya said quietly. She addressed the entire group again. When I founded Skyward Airlines 5 years ago, I did so with a clear mission: to create an airline where every passenger would be treated with equal dignity and respect, regardless of their appearance, background, or ticket class. I invested millions of dollars in training programs specifically designed to address unconscious bias and ensure consistent, respectful service for all. She looked down at her notebook, filled with observations from the day's journey. Based on today's experience, we have failed dramatically in maintaining those standards. Robert stepped forward. Ms. Johnson, I want to assure you that what you experienced today is not representative of our normal operations. I'm certain this was an isolated— Please don't, Maya interrupted, her voice gentle but firm. Don't tell me this was isolated when I've been documenting patterns of behavior throughout the entire journey. And especially don't tell me that to my face while standing in front of crew members who know better. She turned to Zoe. Would you say this type of treatment is isolated or common? All eyes turned to the young flight attendant who looked torn between professional loyalty and personal integrity. "You won't face repercussions for honesty," Maya assured her. "In fact, dishonesty is what would concern me at this point." Zoe straightened her shoulders. "It's not isolated," she said quietly. "The unequal treatment happens regularly. Not always as obvious as what you experienced today, but it happens. Some of us have tried to address it through proper channels, but—" She trailed off, glancing at her colleagues. "But nothing changes," Maya finished for her. "I understand." She turned back to the group. "This is exactly the problem. Somewhere between our founding principles and today we lost our way. The culture I built to prevent exactly this kind of discrimination has eroded." She closed her notebook decisively. "That changes today." The cabin was silent. Even the distant airport noises seemed muted as everyone waited for what would come. "Next, Mr. Green," Maya addressed the station manager. "I'll need the following things immediately. A conference room at the airport where I can conduct individual interviews with each crew member, contact information for the Atlanta check-in staff who handled my boarding, and a video conference set up with our global training director and chief of operations." Robert nodded quickly. "Of course, right away. And please inform them that I'll be extending my stay in London to conduct a thorough review of our operations here before returning to Atlanta for a company-wide assessment." "Yes, Ms. Johnson." Maya turned back to the crew. "I want to be clear about something. This isn't about punishing individuals, though there will be accountability. This is about identifying where and how our systems failed to maintain our core values." She looked at each face in turn. "Some of you may have directly contributed to the problems I experienced today. Others may have simply failed to intervene when you noticed unequal treatment. And some, like Zoe, tried to uphold our standards, despite a culture that had begun to drift." Maya picked up her carry-on. "You'll each have the opportunity to speak with me privately. I expect complete honesty about what you've observed, what you've experienced, and what you believe needs to change." She noticed various reactions among the crew, fear from some, relief from others. Zoe's expression held cautious hope. "That will be all for now," Maya concluded. "Mr. Green will coordinate the individual meetings. Thank you for your attention." As the crew dispersed, Robert stepped closer to Maya. "Ms. Johnson, I want to personally apologize for any negative experience you had. I assure you, had we known—" "That's exactly the problem," Maya said. "The point isn't that I should receive special treatment because of who I am. The point is that every passenger deserves to be treated with dignity, whether they're the CEO or not." Robert nodded, chastened. "Of course, you're absolutely right." "Please make those arrangements now," Maya said. "I'd like to begin the interviews as soon as possible." As Robert hurried away, Zoe approached hesitantly. "Ms. Johnson, I just wanted to say thank you." "For what exactly?" Maya asked. "For seeing what's happening. For caring enough to do something about it." Zoe's voice was quiet but intense. "Some of us have been trying to uphold the original values, but it's been getting harder." Maya studied the young woman thoughtfully. "How did you recognize me earlier? At the gate in Atlanta?" Zoe smiled slightly. "I didn't, not really. I just saw another black woman being treated unfairly and wanted to help. But during our conversation on the plane, when you asked about the company values and the founder, something clicked. Your questions were too specific, too invested." Maya nodded, impressed by Zoe's perception. "Well, I'm glad there are still people like you at Skyward who care about our founding principles. There are more of us than you might think," Zoe assured her. "We just need leadership to reinforce those values again." "That's exactly what's about to happen," Maya promised. As they left the aircraft together, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. What had begun as a routine quality assessment had revealed a much deeper problem, but also a path forward. The coming days would be challenging, but necessary. In the airport terminal, Maya pulled out her phone and made another call. "David? It's Maya. I need you to clear my calendar for the next 2 weeks and book me an extended stay in London." She paused, listening to her assistant's surprised response. Yes, it's important. I've discovered some significant issues that need my personal attention. As she ended the call, Maya caught her reflection in a window. She was still dressed in her simple traveling clothes, looking nothing like the polished CEO whose portrait hung in the company headquarters. Yet today she had learned more about her airline in this outfit than she ever would have in a designer suit. Sometimes, she reflected, you had to step out of your expected role to see the truth. The terminal bustled around her, travelers rushing to connections, families reuniting, airline staff going about their duties. Among them moved people of every background, every color, every life circumstance, each deserving the same respect, each worthy of dignity. That had been her vision for Skyward Airlines from the beginning. Somewhere along the way, that vision had blurred, but now she had the chance to bring it back into focus, sharper and more defined than ever before. Maya walked toward the conference room where she would begin the interviews, her step purposeful and her mind already mapping out the changes to come. This assessment had revealed problems she hadn't anticipated, but it had also shown her exactly what needed to be fixed. And Maya Johnson had never been one to back down from a challenge, especially one this important. 6 months had passed since Maya's fateful flight to London. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Skyward Airlines' Atlanta headquarters as she reviewed the quarterly reports spread across her desk. The numbers told a story of transformation: passenger satisfaction up 32%, employee retention improved by 18%, and most significantly, complaints about discriminatory treatment down by a staggering 87%. But numbers never told the whole story. Maya set aside the reports and walked to the window, gazing out at the airport in the distance. She could see a Skyward plane taxiing toward the runway, its distinctive blue and silver livery gleaming in the morning light. From this height, the passengers were invisible, just as the human experiences behind the statistics often remained unseen. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called, turning from the window. Zoe Williams entered, no longer in a flight attendant's uniform, but dressed in a professional blazer and slacks. The silver pin on her lapel identified her new role, Director of Customer Experience. "Good morning," Zoe said, carrying a tablet and a small stack of folders. "Ready for the 6-month review?" Maya smiled warmly. "Absolutely. Let's use the conference room. The team should be arriving shortly." They walked together down the corridor, passing walls newly adorned with photographs showing diverse passengers and crew members. Each image bore a simple caption: "Dignity in the Skies," the name of the initiative Maya had launched immediately after her return from London. The conference room was already filling with people when they arrived. Some faces were familiar, others new, all part of the team Maya had assembled to reshape Skyward's culture. She took her seat at the head of the table, nodding greetings to each person. "Thank you all for being here," she began once everyone had settled. Today marks 6 months since we launched the Dignity in the Skies initiative. I'd like to hear from each department about what's working, what's challenging, and what we've learned." David Chen, the Chief Operating Officer, spoke first. "The operational changes have been fully implemented across all stations. Every employee has completed the new training program, and we've adjusted scheduling to ensure proper staffing at check-in counters during peak times." Maya nodded. One of her first discoveries had been that understaffing created pressure that often led to shortcuts in customer service, shortcuts that disproportionately affected certain passengers. "And the feedback system?" she asked. "Live and functioning at every customer touchpoint," David replied. "Passengers can submit immediate feedback at check-in gates and in flight. The data flows directly to Zoe's team for analysis." Maya turned to Zoe. "And what are we learning from that feedback?" Zoe opened her tablet. "The overall trends are positive. The most significant improvement is in our equal treatment metrics. 6 months ago, passengers of color reported feeling respected and valued 43% less often than white passengers. Today that gap has narrowed to 8%. "Still too wide," Maya noted. "Agreed," Zoe said. "But the trajectory is promising." The anonymous, Assessment program has been particularly effective in identifying problem areas. The anonymous assessment program had been one of Maya's first initiatives. Regular mystery passengers from diverse backgrounds evaluating service across the network. It expanded the approach she had taken herself that day on Flight SA-247. Speaking of assessments, Maya said, "How are our former check-in agents doing?" All eyes turned to Gabriela Mendez, the new training director. She consulted her notes before responding. Thomas completed the extended sensitivity training and has shown genuine improvement. His recent assessments from diverse passengers have been consistently positive. He's currently working at the priority service desk and doing well. Maya nodded, pleased. She had been clear from the beginning. The goal wasn't punishment, but improvement. And Patricia? Gabriela's expression grew more reserved. Patricia completed the required training but continued to show resistance to the core concepts. After 2 more customer complaints and an unsuccessful performance improvement plan, she chose to resign 3 weeks ago. Maya absorbed this information silently. Not everyone would embrace change, no matter how necessary. The important thing was that standards were now clear and consistently enforced. "Let's talk about the crew experience," she said, turning to Michael Okafor, the vice president of in-flight services. Michael leaned forward. "The crew feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. The revised service protocols have actually made their jobs easier by standardizing expectations. And the new incident reporting system has given them a way to address problems without fear of retaliation." This had been another key finding from Maya's investigation. Many crew members had witnessed discrimination but felt powerless to address it. The new anonymous reporting system changed that dynamic. "Any resistance to the changes?" Maya asked. "Some," Michael acknowledged, "particularly from veteran crew members who were set in their ways. But the peer mentoring program has helped bring most of them along. Having respected colleagues demonstrate the new approach has been more effective than any training video." The meeting continued, each department reporting on their progress, challenges, and upcoming initiatives. Maya listened intently, asking probing questions and taking notes. This wasn't a superficial rebranding exercise. It was a fundamental restructuring of how Skyward Airlines operated. As the meeting concluded, Maya addressed the entire group. "The progress we've made is encouraging, but our work is far from complete. 8% is still 8% too much disparity in how our passengers experience our airline. Let's keep pushing forward." The team filed out, leaving Maya alone with Zoe. They sat in companionable silence for a moment before Zoe spoke. "I never properly thanked you," she said quietly. "For what?" Maya asked. "For taking a chance on me. For promoting someone with barely 2 years of experience to director level." Maya smiled. "I didn't take a chance on you. I recognized your values and your courage. When everyone else was going along with the status quo, you were the only one who approached a passenger you thought was being mistreated." Zoe nodded, remembering that day. "I had no idea I was talking to the CEO." "That's exactly why your action mattered," Maya said. "You did the right thing because it was right, not because of who I might be." "Speaking of doing the right thing," Zoe said, pulling a folder from her stack, "there's something I wanted to discuss with you. It's about James Harrington, the station manager from Atlanta." Maya raised an eyebrow. James had been the only staff member that day who had recognized her valid ticket without question. "What about him?" "He's been implementing the new protocols effectively, but I noticed something in his recent assessment scores." Zoe opened the folder and slid it across the table. "He scores perfectly when dealing with passengers of color in first class or business class, but his scores drop significantly for economy passengers." Maya studied the data, her brow furrowing. "So he's not discriminating based on race, but on perceived status or wealth." "Exactly," Zoe confirmed. "He treats wealthy-appearing passengers of all backgrounds well, but shows less respect to economy passengers, particularly those who appear to be of lower socioeconomic status." Maya sat back considering this information. This highlights something important. Our work isn't just about addressing racial bias, It's about ensuring dignity for every passenger, regardless of ticket class, appearance, or any other factor. How should we address it? Zoe asked. Add a specific module to the next training refresh, Maya decided, and adjust our assessment criteria to better capture this type of disparity. James will need coaching, but this is a learning opportunity for our entire organization. Zoe made notes on her tablet. I'll get that started right away. As they wrapped up their discussion, Maya's assistant appeared at the door. Ms. Johnson, your next appointment is here. The journalism student for that interview about Skyward's transformation. Thank you, Lisa. I'll be right there. Maya gathered her notes, then paused, looking back at Zoe. You know, sometimes I think about how differently things might have gone if I hadn't been on that flight that day. Zoe considered this. Someone else would have experienced the same treatment. But without your position, their complaint might have been ignored, like so many before. The truth of this statement hung in the air between them, a reminder of the privilege that had allowed Maya to enact change where others could not. That's why this work matters, Maya said finally. Because every passenger deserves to be treated with respect, whether they own the airline or not. As they walked out together, they passed a large framed photograph in the hallway, a diverse group of Skyward employees surrounding a newly painted aircraft. It had been taken 3 months ago at the official launch of the Dignity in the Skies initiative. The pride on each face told its own story of transformation. Maya paused briefly before the image. 6 months ago, she had boarded a plane as an anonymous passenger and discovered that her company had drifted from its founding values. The experience had been painful but necessary, revealing cracks in the foundation that might otherwise have continued to widen. The journalist was waiting in Maya's office, a young woman with eager eyes and a recorder ready. Maya settled into her chair, preparing to share the story of Skyward's journey. Thank you for making time for this interview, Ms. Johnson. The journalist began. Your Dignity in the Skies initiative has become a case study in corporate culture change. What inspired you to launch such a comprehensive program? Maya smiled, thinking back to that morning at Atlanta International Airport, dressed in simple clothes with her first-class ticket in hand. It began with a flight I took 6 months ago, she said. I decided to experience my own airline as a regular passenger. As she recounted the story, Maya reflected on how a single day had catalyzed such profound change. The uncomfortable truth she had faced had ultimately strengthened both her resolve and her company. Outside her window, another Skyward plane lifted into the clear blue sky, carrying hundreds of passengers, each one deserving dignity, each one now more likely to receive it. The airline wasn't perfect yet, but it was flying in the right direction, and in the end, that journey toward better, toward living up to your highest values rather than just talking about them, was what truly mattered.